Hi, I'm Matt Nisanoff of the South Central Brooklyn United for Progress. Thank you for joining us for this part of our endorsement process. In this interview, we're going to be speaking with candidate for City Council District 40, Edwin Raymond. The format will be a 5-minute statement from Mr. Raymond, followed by a 10-minute period for questions and answers. Mr. Raymond, thank you for filling out our candidates questionnaire, which is available on our website, as will this interview. Please, let's get right started and go ahead with the 5-minute statement.
Sure. First and foremost, I thank everyone able to join, everyone who's going to watch the recording. I don't take anything in this process for granted. So my name is Edwin Raymond. I was born, raised, and still live right here in East Flatbush, Brooklyn. My parents migrated from Haiti for a better life, as many immigrants do. They actually met here. They migrated at different times from Haiti. Unfortunately, as a toddler, I lost my mom to cancer. And this was very difficult on my dad, his mental health. And by the time I was 6 years old, he wasn't working. And my brother and I have a brother 18 months older than me. We struggled. But when my dad didn't have much of an education. By the time I made it to 7th grade, he really wasn't able to help me with homework anymore. It was, there was already a language barrier, but he was still really good at math up until I got to 7th grade. It was a little too complicated. But he made up for what he lacked in education with principle. My dad taught my brother and I just important life lessons, things that I carry with me today, things that keep me morally grounded. And I was pretty good in school, overachiever, despite surroundings. And it didn't stop me from being mistreated, unfortunately, by police officers. And rather than take those experiences rather than those experiences deterring me from joining the police department, it actually made me want to join more. At 18, I made the decision to become a police officer. I became a cop at 22 years old. I was very, very critical of the police department, very critical of how things operate. And I was shocked when I couldn't really find the issue in the police department. But immediately after finishing the police department, the academy rather, I realized that the issue was in the quota system that the department denies exists. There's a quota system that affects Black and brown folks disproportionately. And I couldn't believe that this thing was real and this is how it operated. I never adhered to it. I suffered retaliation for years, leading up to 5 years ago where I became a whistleblower. I'm the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit with 11 other cops in the Southern District, federal lawsuit, to eliminate not just the quota system, but to truly revamp policing as we know it. And the thing about policing in New York, it's the epicenter of policing for the nation. Oftentimes, other cities emulate New York style. About 5 years ago, after becoming a whistleblower, over 400 people reached out to me in a week and said, "Young man, can you please run for something? Run for Congress, run for the state Senate, run for city council." Integrity and courage are the things that are missing from politics. And you've already demonstrated those things organically in the work that you do. You've had humble beginnings and made the decision to not forget the voiceless. You naturally are a leader. And I would always just kind of write it off as a compliment and thank the people. But then about 2 years ago, I started really thinking about it. And a year and a half ago, I made the decision that this is what I'm going to do. I want to continue the momentum. The way I see it is I've already been representing the people. I want the people to send me to City Hall to do it officially now. Public safety chair is one of the things that I have my eyes on. Obviously, criminal justice reform is my signature issue, but I want to apply this same integrity, rigor, courage across the spectrum, in other categories that affect members of our community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we will start the question and answer period. If folks have questions, please, you can use your raise your hand mechanism in Zoom, or you can just raise your hand physically and I'll be happy to call on you. Sarah, let's start with you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And also, thank you for your courage in what you've been doing so far. So, I'm so excited that in your questionnaire, you explicitly mentioned that you would support the New York Health Act. So, our first question is if you would be willing to sign a pledge that the campaign has that you would support it. Just so we can keep track, I will drop the link in the chat. And the second question is, I was hoping you can expand on what you would do as a city council member to support the New York Health Act and health infrastructure in general.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So yes, I absolutely would sign, because, it's one thing to say it, putting your signature to something shows, you can't unsign it basically. It's a lot harder to unsign, I should say. So I absolutely have no issue. We have to make sure the funding goes in the right directions. Healthcare, both healthcare workers, obviously, and the patients. Um, we need to take care of healthcare workers to make sure that they can take care of the patients. And we have to ensure that the people have access to adequate healthcare, improving hospitals, et cetera. It's all about securing the funds. We have to make sure funds are already being spent properly. We never thought we'd be in a pandemic. I still can't believe, sometimes I wake up and I say, I can't wait to wake up and tell everybody I had a nightmare about a pandemic, but it's real. It's been almost a year now and it's real. So we have to not only ensure funding goes in the right directions to make sure people have adequate health care, but we have to kind of make sure we set up a plan so that the posterity, if ever faced with a dilemma like a pandemic or other health scares, there's a proper response so people can make sure they have adequate health care.
Very good. We will go with Marion and then Jen. And then I have a question as well. Um,
Hi, Edwin. Thank you for standing up to the culture. And so there's another area that I think we need a lot of help in, and which is in the area of development and building. It's not just about building more housing, it's how we build and where we build and what we build. Mm-hmm. Now, Eric Adams, our borough president, has teamed up with the incumbent Matthew Eugene to propose building housing on a piece of land that's been vacant for a while, 29,000 square feet at Bedford and Church. Basically, nature has reclaimed that land. So given the need for housing, given that there are structures in Brooklyn, Brooklyn has buildings that have a very good, what they call very good bones. How would you prioritize new development, renovation, and the need for green space, which is really important for both health and mental health?
Yeah, that's a very important question. That's the hot button issue. This administration's response was the mandatory inclusionary housing and the ZQA, the zoning for quality and affordability. Those things don't go far enough. We have to ensure, so development is always happening, but we have to make sure it's happening in a way that it respects the people, the environment, and people aren't left out of the process. So to answer the question backwards, going to, from the back of the question to the end, I actually studied architecture. That was actually my first passion. I studied architecture in high school. I kind of fell out of love with art by the time I got to college. But there was, I think his name was Buckminster Fuller and Frank Lloyd Wright, architects who believe that you have to give back. The piece of land that we take, we make up for it on the roof. So I believe in terms of green space, we can do a lot better with our roofs. But also we have to ensure that we have adequate parks and recreational spaces. Again, mental health. It's better it's good for mental health, physical health. So any development that's going to happen, we need full community input. The ULURP process has some loopholes. We have to make sure that the people are educated. There's outreach and education so people can know that they actually have a voice. too many times when I'm walking throughout the neighborhood, people are like, oh, wow, look what they're building here now, not knowing that they had a voice throughout the entire process. So one of the things with development that I believe is we need education outreach to let the people know that they need to be heard throughout every step of the process. And we have to ensure that whatever's happening, whatever's coming, it makes sense both for the environment, for the people, and for the neighborhood as a whole.
I think you're muted, Matt.
Jen, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Edwin. How are you? I wanted to ask you a question about why you decided to run for city council in a district where you don't live instead of District 45 where you do live.
District 45. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I don't live in District 45.
Oh, I thought you did. Sorry. No. Where do you live?
I'm on Lenox Road.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't know where I got.
Well, there was redistricting. So where I used to live, used to be 40 back in 2007, and that's Newkirk Avenue, and now the east side of Newkirk Avenue is now District 45 because now it goes up to Clarendon. So maybe that's where the misunderstanding is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought I read something else about that, but it's okay. I didn't realize. So you live on Lenox between which avenues?
I'm on the east side of Lenox Road.
So like closer to Flatbush or like closer to Rogers?
And I don't think we need people to give out their exact address.
I wasn't asking him for his exact address. It's okay. I have to go back and look at what I had read, but I had read something about you that said that you actually lived in Jamani's old district.
No.
So I apologize.
The block that I used to live on, that's where it was 40. We, redistricting after the census, it became 45 now. But it was originally.
Yeah, no, I know where you.
As a 21 years old, and I voted for Matthew. I did actually vote for Matthew Eugene back in 2007. It was the second time I ever voted. After voting for John Kerry, that was my first.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. We've got time for one last question. I'll go ahead and ask it. The council has 36 committees. If you're going to be assigned to 3 of them, what happens if you're assigned to committees that are not your priority issues? And how do you handle that? And secondly, can you give us your views on the current status of the Brooklyn Democratic Party?
Okay. So, I already said the public safety chair, that's the one that I have my eyes on, but obviously, I'm going to represent the people and a multitude of issues. If it was to happen that all 3 committees that I'd get into are not the ones that I would choose to have as priority, I believe in the people closest to the issues are also closest to the answers. So one of my frustrations with the existing public safety chairs is they didn't reach out enough to the people closer to the issue. So for instance, my education policy, I sat down with a plethora of friends who are now educators in coming up with that. I'm no longer in school, although I did go to public school, and I don't currently have children. So I don't get the organic, the organic interaction to see what's going on. So I go to the people closest. So any committee that I'd be involved in, if it's not something that I have, even if it's something that I have knowledge in, I'm going to make sure that I have a coalition of people who are closest to the issue, whether they're employed in the area or affected by the area, different stakeholders in those different categories to ensure that whatever decision that I make, it's an informed decision.
Excellent. And the final question of your views on the current status of the Brooklyn Democratic Party.
I mean, we need democracy to work, right? There's always room for improvement. We have to be willing to constructively criticize, see what the issues are, and strengthen things. There are things that can be a lot stronger with the party. There's, it's no big secret for anyone paying attention. There's clickiness and other things that are sometimes part of human behavior, but when you choose to be a leader, you have to be exceptional in many areas. We're all human, but again, when you're in a leadership position, you're held to a higher standard, and that should reflect in your decisions and how you carry yourself. So there's room for improvements, and I look forward to being one of those incumbents that push things in the right direction when it comes to improving the strength of the party and what the party is able to accomplish for the people.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for all of you for joining us for this part of the South Central Brooklyn United for Progress's candidate endorsement process. We hope you'll visit the website to see candidates' questionnaires and interviews, and join us for the next step, which will be a vote on endorsements at our general meeting on February 21st at 4 p.m. And Mr. Raymond, we hope you can be there as well. Once again, thank you, candidate for City Council District 40 seat, Edwin Raymond.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Edwin.
you.
Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.